5 women were butchered. The killer was never caught. Between August and November 1888, someone stalked the fog-shrouded streets of Whitechapel, murdering and mutilating prostitutes with surgical precision that shocked Victorian London. The killer sent taunting letters to newspapers. Police received hundreds of tips. Investigators questioned thousands of suspects. Yet Jack the Ripper vanished into history, his identity remaining one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. Whitechapel in 1888 was London's most desperate slum. 70,000 people crammed into filthy tenements. Women sold their bodies for fourpence, the price of a bed in a doss house. Poverty, alcoholism, and violence defined daily life. The Metropolitan Police struggled to maintain order. Gas lamps provided the only light on narrow cobblestone streets shrouded in perpetual fog. Into this darkness came a killer unlike any London had seen. He would redefine the concept of serial murder. His methods suggested knowledge of anatomy. His brutality exceeded anything in criminal records. The victims were vulnerable women, ages 25 to 47. All earned money through prostitution. All were killed in the early morning hours. All had their throats cut so deeply they were nearly decapitated. But throat cutting was just the beginning. The killer performed post-mortem mutilations with disturbing precision. He removed organs with skill suggesting medical or butchering knowledge. He worked quickly in near-total darkness. Mary Ann Nichols, 43 years old, died first. August 31st, 1888, 3:45 a.m. A carter discovered her body on Buck's Row. Her throat had been slashed twice, cutting to the spine. Her abdomen was ripped open with a deep, jagged wound. The cut extended from her ribs to her pelvis. There was remarkably little blood at the scene, suggesting she was killed elsewhere or bled out quickly. Police Constable John Neal found the body still warm. Dr. Llewellyn arrived and pronounced her dead. The doctor noted the abdominal mutilations appeared purposeful, not frenzied. Nobody had heard screams. The murder seemed impossible. Buck's Row was a busy thoroughfare despite the hour. The killer cut her throat, mutilated her abdomen, and vanished within minutes. Detectives found no weapon, no witnesses, no clear motive. Initial theories suggested a leather apron-wearing Jewish slaughterman. The press sensationalized the crime as the work of a madman, but London's East End saw frequent violence. One murder did not yet constitute panic. Annie Chapman, 47 years old, died 8 days later, September 8, 1888, 5:30 a.m. Her body was discovered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street by resident John Davis. Chapman's throat was cut deeply, severing everything down to the vertebrae. Her abdomen was entirely laid open. Her intestines were lifted out and placed over her right shoulder. The killer had taken her uterus. He had also taken 2 brass rings torn from her fingers. He arranged personal items from her pockets around her feet in a deliberate display. The murder occurred in a yard accessible to 17 people. Dr. George Bagster Phillips conducted the autopsy. He concluded the killer possessed anatomical knowledge. The uterus had been removed with one sweep of a long, very sharp knife. Phillips estimated the entire attack took under 15 minutes. Panic seized Whitechapel. Women refused to go out after dark. Vigilante groups formed to patrol streets. The press demanded action. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Charles Warren faced mounting pressure. Detective Inspector Frederick Aberline led the investigation. He coordinated with City of London Police. Detectives interviewed hundreds of witnesses. They found contradictory descriptions, unreliable testimony, and no solid leads. The leather apron theory dominated early investigation. Police arrested John Pizer, a Jewish boot finisher. He had a solid alibi. The theory reflected anti-Semitic prejudice more than evidence. Pizer was released. On September 27th, the Central News Agency received a letter. It was written in red ink and signed Jack the Ripper. The writer claimed responsibility and promised more murders. Police suspected a hoax. September 30th brought unprecedented horror. 2 women were murdered within 45 minutes. Investigators called it the double event. The killer had struck twice in one night, defying increased police presence. Elizabeth Stride, 44, was found at 1 a.m. in Dutfield's yard off Burner Street. Her throat was cut, but she showed no abdominal mutilations. Investigators believe the killer was interrupted. Louis Diemschutz drove his cart into the yard. His horse shied at something in the darkness. Diemschutz found Stride's body still warm and bleeding. The killer had fled moments before. 45 minutes later, City of London Police Constable Edward Watkins discovered Catherine Eddowes in Mitre Square. This time, the killer had finished his work. Eddowes suffered the most extensive mutilations yet. Her throat was cut to the bone. Her face was slashed and disfigured. Her abdomen was ripped open from ribs to pelvis. Her intestines were pulled out and thrown over her right shoulder. The killer had removed her left kidney and her uterus. He had taken them away. The entire attack occurred during Watkins' 15-minute patrol circuit. The killer had worked with terrifying speed and precision. A piece of Eddowes' blood-stained apron was found in Goulston Street. Above it, someone had written in chalk, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Warren ordered it erased before dawn. Warren feared anti-Semitic riots. His decision destroyed potential evidence. The graffiti's meaning remains debated. Some believe the killer wrote it, others think it was unrelated. The destruction ensured we would never know. October 1st, the Central News Agency received another letter. Written in red ink, it referenced the double event before newspapers had reported it. The letter included details only the killer could know. The writer mocked police efforts. He promised to clip the next victim's ears and send them to authorities. He signed it Jack the Ripper. This letter convinced many it was genuine. October 16th, George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, received a small box. Inside was half a human kidney preserved in wine. A letter accompanied it, claiming it came from Eddowes. The kidney appeared to be from a 45-year-old woman with Bright's disease. Eddowes had Bright's disease. Medical examination could not definitively prove it was hers. But the timing and condition suggested authenticity. The From Hell letter mocked Lusk. The writer claimed he had fried and eaten the other half of the kidney. The crude handwriting differed from previous letters. Experts debated which correspondence was genuine. November 9th brought the final canonical murder. Mary Jane Kelly, 25 years old, was killed in her room at 13 Miller's Court. This murder differed from all others in location and brutality. Kelly was the youngest victim and considered attractive despite her poverty. She was killed indoors, giving the Ripper privacy and time. He used both. What he did to Mary Jane Kelly exceeded all previous horrors. Her body was discovered at 10:45 a.m. by rent collector Thomas Bowyer. He looked through the broken window and saw the bed. The scene was so horrific, he immediately fetched police. Inspector Abberline arrived with Dr. Phillips. They broke down the door. Kelly's body was virtually unrecognizable as human. The killer had spent hours with her. He had removed her face. Her throat was cut down to the spine. Her entire abdominal cavity was emptied. Her organs were removed and arranged around the room. Her heart was missing. Her face was skinned and placed on the bedside table. The walls were splattered with blood. The bed was soaked through to the mattress. Investigators estimated the attack lasted 2 to 3 hours. Kelly had been alive when it started. Her clothing was neatly folded on a chair. Ashes of burned fabric filled the fireplace, suggesting the killer needed light for his work. A kettle had been boiled. The scene suggested methodical, unhurried butchery. This was the last canonical Ripper murder. After Kelly, the murders stopped. Theories suggest the killer died, was imprisoned for another crime, emigrated, or was committed to an asylum. Nobody knows. The investigation consumed Scotland Yard. Detectives interviewed over 2,000 people. They investigated 300 suspects. They pursued countless false leads. The case file filled boxes with contradictory witness statements and theories. Eyewitness descriptions varied wildly. Some described a shabby Jewish man. Others recalled a well-dressed gentleman. Heights ranged from 5'4" to 6 feet. Hair color ranged from dark to fair. The most detailed description came from Joseph Lawend. He saw a man with Catherine Eddowes 15 minutes before her murder. He described a man of medium height, fair complexion, small mustache, wearing a deerstalker hat. George Hutchinson claimed he saw Mary Jane Kelly with a well-dressed man shortly before her murder. He described the man in minute detail: dark complexion, dark mustache, long dark coat, gold watch chain, carrying a small parcel. But Hutchinson came forward 3 days late. His description seemed impossibly detailed for a brief nighttime glimpse. Modern investigators question whether he invented details or was the killer himself, inserting himself into the investigation. Investigators developed theories about the killer's identity. Some believed he was a doctor with surgical training. Others thought he might be a butcher or slaughterman, familiar with removing organs quickly. The anatomical knowledge theory dominated early investigation. But modern forensic experts note the mutilations, while brutal, don't require surgical precision. A butcher or hunter could possess sufficient skill. Police Commissioner Warren resigned in November after criticism of his handling of the investigation. His erasure of the Goulston Street graffito symbolized the investigation's failures. Fresh leadership brought no breakthroughs. Montague John Druitt became an early suspect. The 31-year-old barrister was found drowned in the Thames in December 1888. His family believed he might be the Ripper. Police files suggest he was seriously considered, but Druitt had alibis for some murders. He was playing cricket when Chapman was killed. His suicide timing is suggestive, but not conclusive. He remains one of many suspects with circumstantial connections. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish immigrant, was another strong suspect. He lived in Whitechapel and was committed to an asylum in 1891 for threatening behavior. Police officials later named him as their preferred suspect. Chief Inspector Donald Swanson wrote in his notes that Kosminski was identified by a witness but refused to testify against a fellow Jew. This identification was never formalized. Kosminski died in the asylum in 1919. Recent DNA analysis of a shawl allegedly from the Eddowes crime scene claims to link Kosminski to the murders, but the shawl's provenance is disputed. Chain of custody is broken. Contamination is likely. Francis Tumblety, an American quack doctor, fled England in November 1888 while under investigation for gross indecency. Scotland Yard corresponded with American police about him. He died in 1903, never charged. Prince Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson, was baselessly accused in the 1970s. The theory is thoroughly debunked. He had solid alibis and was nowhere near London during the murders. Over 100 suspects have been proposed. They include artists, doctors, sailors, aristocrats, and lunatics. Some theories are well researched. Most are speculative fantasies built on coincidence and imagination. The truth is, we don't know why the murder stopped. Death, imprisonment, emigration, or institutionalization all remain possible. The killer simply vanished, leaving only questions and mutilated bodies. Victorian forensic science lacked tools to catch such a killer. There were no fingerprint databases, no DNA analysis, no criminal profiling. Photography was primitive. Witness testimony was unreliable. The investigation was hampered by jurisdictional disputes. Whitechapel fell under Metropolitan Police jurisdiction. Mitre Square was in the City of London, a separate force. Cooperation was imperfect. Anti-Semitic prejudice clouded the investigation. The media and public eagerly blamed Jewish immigrants. Police pressure on the Jewish community yielded nothing but resentment. The real killer exploited these divisions. The letters claiming Ripper authorship numbered in the hundreds. Most were obvious hoaxes. Determining authenticity is impossible. The Dear Boss and From Hell letters are considered most likely genuine. Like modern criminal profilers suggest, the Ripper was a local man, comfortable in Whitechapel's maze of streets and alleys. He likely lived or worked in the area. He understood police patrol patterns. He probably appeared ordinary, even respectable. The victims went with him willingly into dark corners. He didn't arouse suspicion. He blended into the population of 70,000 working-class residents. The victim's willingness to accompany him suggests he seemed safe. He may have posed as a client, or perhaps he was familiar to them, a local man they knew casually. The surgical skill debate continues. Some experts insist the organ removals show training. Others note the mutilations, while horrific, are crude hacking. A determined layperson could perform them. The speed of the murders is most impressive. Killing, mutilating, and fleeing in under 15 minutes requires remarkable nerve and efficiency. This suggests someone comfortable with violence and blood. Jack the Ripper's identity remains unknown. Despite 136 years of investigation, countless books, and modern forensic techniques, we're no closer to certainty. He murdered at least 5 women and vanished into history. The case changed criminal investigation. It introduced criminal profiling concepts. It demonstrated the power of media to shape public fear. It created the modern template for serial killer mythology. The Ripper case endures because it represents Victorian London's dark underbelly. It exposed the desperate poverty, the exploitation of women, the inadequacy of institutions meant to protect the vulnerable. The 5 canonical victims deserve remembrance. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly were not just bodies. They were women trapped by poverty in a brutal world. Their killer remains unknown. Perhaps that's fitting. The Ripper has become a symbol more than a man. He represents our fears about violence, anonymity, and evil that escapes justice. Whitechapel today is transformed. The cramped slums are gone. Modern buildings occupy the murder sites. But the fog-shrouded streets of 1888 live in imagination, forever stalked by a phantom killer.